Alright, response video to a person I have communicated with in the past at an undisclosed location on an important subject, animal rights. And I'd just like to say to Tommy, fuck you for not showing up. I have 1,300 videos deleted and you can't say a word on the subject. And even, considering why you made this video, the circumstance, what I did is sort of a minor crime. But anyway, we'll move on. But thanks. Showed your true colors there, fella. So anyway, we'll go to his video.
But what about laboratory animals, Zarni? Okay? Like I said, I was going to put up some video, and they're horrid. Inducing these animals with seizures and, stuff like that. But it is for research, and they actually torture these animals. And it's sad to say, and it makes me sick that it happens, but in the sense of my mind, I'm saying, hey, but they're using these animals to cure diseases and stuff like that.
Yeah, all right. Look, we could do a lot of things to save lives and be productive that would marginalize certain individuals. We did it for a few hundred years with slavery. Incredibly productive for human progress. Okay? Kind of almost vital to our progress. We wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for that slavery. Okay? Because it made us highly productive. But the problem is there's an ethical problem. It's not the right way to get to the finish line. The means doesn't justify the ends. All right, and the same kind of thing happens with this whole argument of abusing animals for our benefit as a kind. So the question is pretty simple. Either you consider yourself a race of humans or whatever, or you consider yourself part of the kingdom of conscious life forms. I can just throw the question back at you. Let's say there were no animals. Let's say there really was a God, and he created two kinds of things, food, and conscious beings. And the biology of the food was different. The DNA was different, and it was a completely different thing. It wasn't related to us. It was just food. So we wouldn't benefit by experimenting on it to learn how to cure our diseases. So all we had was humans, and we sat around and said, well, the retards don't really feel what we feel. There's lots of people of diminished capacity. They can't score a certain number on an IQ test, and so we'll just use them. We'll just experiment on them. Because they don't matter. Their consciousness isn't our consciousness exactly, because they don't have the same IQ. And that's all this comes down to. We can pretend there's some other missing thing out there in those animals, but the only thing missing is a knowledge base. Okay? They have the emotions, they have the feelings, they have the capacity to be tortured and to suffer pain. So it's just you're just rationalizing an abuse of a cousin, a relation that you've decided is not worthy. And it really is similar to the slave question. People 500 years from now, maybe 100, maybe 20 years from now, who knows when humanity will get enlightened. But they're not something you can just do whatever you feel like to. They're not just bricks. They're not rocks. They're sentient creatures, and we're responsible for how we interact with them and what we do to them. And it's one thing to manage them. It's another thing to just clearly and explicitly exploit them. And if that's your definition of, like a human life, making our lives longer or making our lives a better quality, you can accept that price. Well, yeah, you've rationalized it. You haven't created. You haven't provided evidence that what you're doing isn't just as shortcut-ish as slavery.
Animals die all the time in this process, and it's probably more torturous on these animals, they get in a club over the head a couple times and then it's over. I mean, these animals go through years and years of testing. Okay? But are you for that or against that, Zarni? Because I want to know, because it is more horrific than what you actually showed in your video.
Yeah, well, I'm against it if you're going to ask me. I mean, you're not asking me, but you did open it up to anybody. Yeah, no, I guess in theory, I'm against it. Yeah, that's right. You know, there's ways that we can do it. We can do it the hard way. The hard way is to disable the sentience in animals and then do whatever you want to them. But, you know, that requires us to do more work, and it makes it more expensive. But that's the cost of being human. That's the cost of being an intelligent animal, that you have to do things maybe the right way. Slavery was the wrong way. A working wage would have been the right way. Would have been more expensive. Wouldn't have been as convenient. That's the only thing, okay? I mean, the ethical line, logically, is drawn. I mean, you're deciding that something else's torture is worth your gain, and I'm arguing that you can't present a rational argument to justify that, because the thing you're torturing, it's not about IQ points, it's about sensibilities, and those animals you're torturing have all the sensibilities we have. They just don't have the knowledge.
Let's say your daughter or yourself or anyone in your family has a disease. There's no cure. But these scientists need animals to figure out the cure.
Yeah, well, like I say, they can need to do experiments, and they can be obligated to do them ethically. That's all. Like I said, do it the hard way or do it the easy way. We can all spend a little bit more money to do it the right way, the research. And yeah, maybe it's not quite as productive. We won't get us to the future quite as fast. But at least we fulfilled our ethical obligations. We didn't do something unacceptable to get there. And it all depends on what you consider unacceptable. And I would argue that just as we look at slavery and see the obvious unacceptability of it, the future will look at us and see how unacceptable our behavior was.
And it's a hard road for those animals. Most of them die. Is that okay for you? I mean, I can draw the pictures like you did and stuff like that, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Are you okay with animal testing? Or would you, like, have yourself...
Yeah, whatever. I wish I could, I should edit this video, but I'm really not into doing the editing thing. So sorry about that redundancy. He was a little bit redundant.
Actually go in there and kill deer. Now, it's, with the population growing as fast as it is with humans, if you left the animals to do what they do on their own, they would outpopulate us 100 times faster.
All right, well, this is the simple argument being made here, is that we have to hunt and we have to kill animals and we have to do all this stuff. And sure, we have to manage existence, just that we have to manage our own. People exercise responsible birth control or reproductivity. Animals don't have our knowledge base. They can't do it on their own, so we have to do it for them. No problem. The question is, what's fucking ethical? All right, so you brought up the deer, which is a really perfect example, because we're not controlling their population. We're entertaining hunters. We're subsidizing hunting. Hunters are deciding how many deers there are. So what we have is two choices. We can exterminate the population, okay, just annihilate it, and then the suffering's over. Then there's no longer an incompatibility between the deers and civilization. Or we can reduce their population to a really small number, which will take maybe decades to again reach the numbers it is now, or we can play the stupid game we're playing now, whereas we cull the herds by 1/3 every year, and maintain a preposterously huge population because we aren't going below their replacement birth rate. We're actually a little below it. We're not, because the population still grows. So here we are subsidizing hunters, making their life more convenient, so they, wasting huge amount of resources, letting the deer become a blight on farming and landscaping, and 27,000 cars in New Jersey are hit a year by a deer. What? It's stupid policy. But there's nothing preventing us from managing animal populations. The problem is we're allowing sadistic lunatics to do the management. We're not expediting the process. We're not doing it efficiently, and allowing hunters to do it. They're shooting the animals with bows and arrows. Something we won't allow somebody to exterminate rats with a bow and arrow. We don't kill cows in a pasture by shooting them with a bow and arrow. It's insidious. We give wild animals less rights than farm animals, but we've essentially turned those animals into farm animals. And I've made this argument before, but this is the whole problem with people like save the whales, save the whales. Save them for fucking what? So human beings can go out there and cull them every year, and so the average lifespan of a whale will be 6 years at best. I mean, it's silly. It's idiotic. It's cruel. It's disgusting. But there are choices here, and we're exercising the most unethical, most expedient, most convenient to human being choice, rather than any kind of we're not fulfilling our ethical obligations. And like I said, we just turn this equation around and point the camera at the diminished capacity human and try to make our justifications for why we would treat an animal any different than that individual. That's the question I throw to you. So anyway, don't want to go too long on the subject, so I won't play the rest, but it's basically just keep asking the same question. So, until next time.
Now, we're taking land.
Didn't press the right button. I love when I do that shit. Okay, anyway, till next time again. I'm really going this time.